So today I'm going to be talking to you about balance and how you balance the studying and the application process with the other demands that you might have in your life. So, this first question is one that is really near and dear to my heart. It's one that I can definitely relate to. How do you approach the application process and study for the LSAT while meeting the demands at work? And when I read this question, I felt it right here. I know that so many of us can relate to this. I know that this is one that I can relate to. Sometimes there's just a lot of pressure. There's pressure to do it all. There's pressure to be superhuman. There's pressure to do everything right. And I know, especially as Black women, that is something that I feel for sure. But whether you are a man or you identify differently, I think we can all relate to this feeling of pressure, especially in the pandemic. I think there's been a lot of pressure for parents to feel like they have to juggle virtual learning and juggle the demands of family and their kids with also studying for the LSAT and writing great essays and also, going to work and providing and meeting the demands of your boss. And listen, I know that sometimes some of you have crazy bosses out there. We've all had crazy bosses at one point in time, and so they aren't really understanding what you're going through right now. And that can be a lot to juggle. And I just really want to take a moment and give recognition to all of the parents out there because I feel like there's not enough recognition given to how much you guys are really doing because you're doing so much and you're not even really human. I know that I can feel overwhelmed sometimes with just work, like just work. I don't have little ones running around and I can't imagine how overwhelmed I would be right now. So kudos to you. You are super impressive. You're killing it. Even if you don't feel like you're killing it, you're killing it. And I want you to know that I'm proud of you. And I'm sure other people are proud of you too. So be kind to yourself and be gentle in this process. So if you are trying to balance all of these things in your life, I have 3 tips for you that I think will help you as you navigate the different parts of your life. The first tip is to give yourself enough time and be realistic about the process. The second tip is not to neglect any part of the process. And we'll talk about what that means and where people usually fall into trouble. And then the third tip is to schedule block and be honest with people in your life about where you can spend time and where you need to make appointments with yourself and honor yourself in this process. So the first tip that I'm going to give you is not to underestimate the process and to also not overestimate your ability to wear 17 different hats and to just be honest with yourself about how much time you need. You are only one person, despite sometimes trying to act to the contrary, and you might not have bandwidth to, study for the LSAT and take care of your kids and be a productive member of your household and also go to work and pay the bills. And so sometimes people run into the issue of saying, well, I don't have bandwidth for all of these things, so I'm just going to try to do this part, and this part I'm not going to do as well. And that usually comes when you are thinking from a scarcity mindset, because you are looking at your time as not enough. And so you're trying to shave off where you can instead of an abundance mindset. So I'm encouraging you actually to give yourself the permission to have a mindset of abundance. How can you maximize your time? Normally, I tell people that you should try to study for at least 3 hours a day for at least 3 to 4 months for the LSAT. But if you have 50 million things going on in your life, you might need 6 months. And if you're saying, Sydney, I only have an hour, that's okay. That just means that maybe you need to give yourself a little bit more time to do the process so that, maybe Monday through Friday is just shot. You're like, I have one of those crazy bosses. Listen, I can't do anything Monday through Friday between the kids. And maybe you're not even, a parent. Maybe you're just single. And you're just like, I'm just overwhelmed with work. that's okay. If you can only give me Saturday, you can only give me your weekends, that's okay. But let's just make a timeline that is reflective of that instead of trying to maybe do the same timeline as someone who has an abundance of time. Let's give yourself that abundance of time as well so that you can give yourself the best chance in this process. So really give yourself the time that you need. The next piece of advice I want to talk about is not neglecting any part of the application. So there is this temptation, and I know because I talk to so many second career students who are balancing working while trying to apply to law school. And I hear this a lot. I work with a lot of non-traditional students that they say, okay, well, look, I just don't have time for all of this. I'm going to focus on my LSAT, and the personal statement is just going to be what's going to be. I hear you. I see the temptation, but I think that's actually really misguided. So there's not a lot in this application process we have as much control over as we would like. There is the LSAT, which we would love to have control over that process, but as some of you know who are studying, you don't always have as much control over that test as you want. And there's the timing, which I say you can try to control, but for some of you, like, the timing is already it is what it is. And so I really encourage you to take control over the essays. That's your narrative. That's your story. You have control in that process. You have control over what you write. You have control over how you're perceived in your written materials. Don't just throw that away. Don't negate that. Don't sell yourself short by not giving yourself the time that you really need to perfect those pieces of writing. I see so many applicants every year who do that. They just don't put as much time and effort into the written materials. And unfortunately, that comes back to bite them. And so I would really encourage you not to say, well, my plate is full with kids and work and LSAT, and that's all I can focus on. Don't do that. Really try to find ways in your schedule or your timing, which you do have some control over, to find a way to prioritize all of those pieces of the puzzle. That third piece of advice that I want to talk to you about is schedule blocking and having open and honest conversations. So, and I know I've been talking a lot to parents today in this video, but maybe it looks like saying, hey, mom or dad is gonna be a little unavailable for the next couple of weekends. But when I'm done with my test or when I'm done with my essays, we are gonna go on a fantastic family vacation. And in the pandemic, that family vacation might be a family staycation. Maybe you're a family that camps. My family was never a camping family, but hey, if you're a family who camps, maybe you're going to take a fantastic camping trip in the backyard. Or you can turn a room into a winter wonderland. There are so many fantastic things that you can do as a staycation with your kids as a reward to the family. And maybe it looks like your spouse taking up a little more responsibility at home, or if you're not married but you're in a relationship, I know that can be hard too, especially if it's a new relationship, because you say, well, that needs attention. I need to nurture that relationship. And, it can be hard, but you need to have those conversations. You need to put yourself first. You need to let people know when you are and aren't available. And so what does that look like? It really looks like schedule blocking. And that's saying, okay, this is a time that is just for me and my studying. And so if you say, okay, I'm going to study for the LSAT at 2 p.m. and someone says, hey, can you do this at 2 p.m.? The answer is no. And I know that's so hard. It's so hard for me because I always put other people first. I make all these appointments with myself. And then I always end up doing things for other people during the appointments with myself. And then I'm always like, dang, I didn't really do the thing that I wanted to do because I put other people first. And so if you make an appointment with yourself, and I don't know if you guys are Google Calendar people or planner people. I'm a planner girl. I've got one planner just for schedule blocking, and then I've got another planner for other life things. But, you need to say, no, I've actually written it down. And I like to write it down in pen, because that way if I need to write over it with something else that someone else wants me to do, I have to actually cross it out. And that means I'm actually crossing out that time for myself. And That's like time for future Sydney, right? That's the development that we need for ourselves. And so if you're not able to show up for present you, maybe you can show up for future you and make future you just as important as all those other people in your life who are asking you for things. And maybe it looks like finding the time in your schedule where it's going to be easier for you to prioritize yourself. What does that look like? With my church, I do Pray 21, and it's a fantastic, transformative 21 days of prayer and fasting, but it's at 7 in the morning. And I am not a morning person at all. At all. It's so hard for me. But after I get done being upset that I'm up so early, I have such calm and such peace and such clarity. And that is really the time when I can focus. So for maybe some of you, it's a 7 in the morning or it's a 6 in the morning before anyone else is up. And that is your peaceful time. That is your clear-headed time to study for the LSAT, because that's the 1 hour that you will not be interrupted by anyone. Or maybe that's the time to write, because you really do need a space to have those ideas and those sentences and words flowing. So you might need to figure out when is going to be a really good time for you, and then honor that commitment with yourself and honor showing up for yourself, and let people know. Talk to your friends, talk to your spouse, talk to whoever you need to talk to about that being your time. Now, if you're like me, you might get sidetracked and realize that you're doing things during your time and not even know it. And I also kind of turn off my phone alarms pretty easily. So, you could set phone alarms, but for me, I actually talk to, an assistant, right? Like I've got my Alexa or the Google Home Minis, and she's actually really annoying. I set it every day to meditate at 12:45, and I don't always meditate at 12:45, but it's actually quite a bit of work to turn the Alexa off. You have to shout over her and you have to tell her to stop, and she doesn't usually listen. And there's a good amount of back and forth there, during which I'm like, it's actually probably easier to just meditate right now instead of having this conversation with her. Some of you might need that. You might need an annoying tech piece, or maybe just a really annoying friend who's going to call you and be like, hey, are you working on your essay right now? Because you said you were supposed to work on your essay. We all need those accountability partners. And so, if you have someone in your life that can do that, that can really make sure that you do that, or if you need to use an Alexa or Google or Siri or whatever, that can be a really great option, so that you keep that commitment to yourself and you honor it to yourself. Another thing that you want to be careful of is burning out. So notice when you are starting to burn out. Notice when you are feeling overwhelmed. Notice when you're just not operating at your best. If you're hitting too much writer's block, or if you're consistently scoring lower than you used to on practice tests, maybe that's when you need to switch gears. And sometimes some people do really well with having these 2 weeks over here for the LSAT, and then when that gets to be a little bit much, switching over here and taking those 2 weeks to write the essays. And you can kind of, do some LSAT, do some essays, and that keeps you a little bit nimble and it keeps you from burning out. Some people are fine doing both at the same time, but if you find that you burn out a little bit, you can try going from one to another. That's another great way to just keep prioritizing yourself and keep this as wholesome and maybe as little stress as possible. If you found this video helpful, make sure that you hit the like button and subscribe so that you can get notified when I release new videos to this channel. If you're wondering about how you can work with me so that we can really make your law school dreams a reality, I encourage you to join me in one of my live small group boot camps. I cap every boot camp at 6 students so that I make sure that I deliver personalized attention, answer your questions, and help you craft your essays in every class so that you can submit the best application as possible. I'm also excited to announce the launch of my asynchronous bootcamp. If you are working and you're juggling a lot of responsibilities and you want the same content just on your own time, I am so excited to be able to offer that to you to increase the flexibility that you have to achieve your law school goals on your own time. As always, I encourage you to join my free Facebook group where I answer your questions completely for free, and where you can meet other people just like you who are on this journey so that you don't have to do this alone. I can't wait to meet you, and I'll see you very soon.